Okay, we're going to start today with building a form in Fluent Forms. Once you've logged in the back end, you'll see Fluent Forms here as an option on the left. All forms will show you a list of all of the forms that are currently available, and you can edit and update forms here, as well as see the number of entries each has had, what the conversion or completion rate is, and how many times they've been viewed. So we're going to add a new form here. For the purposes of this video, we're going to use a template form, but you can start with your own entirely blank one. I'm going to go with a very, very basic contact form. So what that does is it pre-installs a bunch of fields. Every form needs to have a first and last name and an email address when you're creating them. A reminder that forms are only for collecting information and not so much to be used for payments, or they're not able to be used for payments, and the information recorded in a form does not go into Sprout. So if you're collecting new contacts, it will not give you further information and it will not add a new contact to the database. So we're on the basic side of this form. What you have here is a visual display of what you'll see on the page, and on the left is all of your options. So you have input field types, text areas, address fields, drop-downs, country lists, websites, file uploads, and then the advanced field types, which are slightly more complex things. Containers, which is the configuration, is it 1 column, 2 columns, 3 columns, 4, 6. And while it has payment fields here, we have not connected payments to the payment processor online, so these won't actually work if you use them. So if we go back to general fields in our form here, we have first and a last name, an email address, and if I want to put in to this, for example, a mobile number, what I can do is I can add this one here, which is automated. Just drag and drop any of these, you drag them up and down the screen to configure where you want them, and then you click on the little pencil to edit the specific label. So if I go mobile 21, you'll see the text says 20 here. Mobile number is the placeholder, which is the words that arrives in the middle here. Is this, as you move your way down here, is this form required? If it's a yes, then this is the error message you'll get if it's not completed. And on the phone option, enable smartphone field, this will show you information on the country that the browser is in. So it attempts to automatically get the phone configuration right. In New Zealand, we use 3 digits, 4 digits, and it often gets it mostly right, but you can turn that off if you don't need it. You can also choose the country that you're selecting. Things like advanced logic, we don't need to worry about those too much, other than often we will use a thing called conditional logic. And this allows us to say if the first name, or shall we say an email address, is brian.blake@nationalhockeycentre.co.nz, if it is that, it will show itself. If it's not, it won't be visible. So if I was to save this option, it would only show you this field if the email address was my email address. Equally, you can do lots of different configurations of it, and you can have more than one condition. So if you need the first name to be Brian and the last name to be Blake and the email to make sure that only I could see that, if for some reason you wanted to do it. Often we use this option when we have, for example, someone chooses an option that says other and we want to make a text box appear. This is a good way to do it. It's called conditional formatting. Otherwise it says show this field for all. So that's all we need. So that's how we design a field. If we want to put in a website URL, they can enter in a website there. Like most forms, the red star here tells you whether it is required or not, and that option for all fields is here. Required, yes or no. So if I click no, the star goes away, and we go yes. And it attempts automatically to validate the email, so that checks that the @ sign is there, and that it's a fully qualified domain. So it's got, it would be @Harbour Hockey, and then it looks for the .co.nz at the end. So it's looking for what we call fully qualified domain. So we've now got this form set up in terms of the fields and the information we want to collect. We save the form, always save the form, because if you lose anything, it's a problem. Moving into settings and integrations, From here, what happens with the form? So the confirmation type, you can have a message show on the same page. You can send them to a thank you page, in which case you have to select which page you want to send them to. Or you can send them to another website altogether. We tend to generally leave it on the thank you message. It does get some better formatting than this. And after submission, so after they hit the submit button, hide it. You've got your label positioning here for the form, so where do the labels sit in relation to the text options? Number of retries. Scheduling is a great thing. You can make it only turn up during the day. And if you click on require user to be logged in, this will mean that the user has to be logged in under their profile before they can even complete the form. Pretty much ignore the rest. Ignore all of this because these are much more complex settings. Perhaps the most important thing to set up when you are setting a form is email notifications. So these need to be turned on, otherwise no one will be told that a form submission has been made, and that's fine if you don't want that. Equally, the person who submits the form will not get a copy of the form submission. So for their point of view, they will submit a bunch of information and then get nothing in their inbox. Most people are accustomed to getting a copy of the information they've submitted. So what we can do is we can edit this one, and what it's saying is using what we call short tags to input in between these brackets. It takes information from their submission. So anything that's inside of a bracket is a code, but you can change the text outside of the bracket at your will. And this code allows you to insert different things. So this is a link to the form, and a copy of all data fields will be added. It's a pretty neat way that the system works. Sends it to the enter email address. So this is a notification that's sent to the person who submitted it. But in this process, how we have this form set up, it actually only sends one notification. So it's not notifying any of the Harbour Hockey staff. So what we're going to do is we are going to add a new notification. Apologies, we'll just go back and take something from here. Just because this is easy, I'm going to copy this. We're going to add a new notification, and we'll call this one a staff notification, and we're going to send it to myself, test notification, and then I can put in exactly the same message and I will get a copy of what that person gets. You can do other things like configure routing, and that is again a bit like conditional formatting. We tend not to use that because it makes it a lot more complex. One of the great things about the way Fluent Form works is you can add shortcodes from the side. So any field that you've added to your form will turn up here. If I just want to see the subject line, not all of the data, I can just go show me the subject line and show me the phone number. Now, one of the things that will happen is you will just get a series of numbers there. There's no information to tell you what it is. So you do need to put something like that. And that's it. You simply, again, go through it. That's fine. Save the notification. Always save your notifications. Always save every page on a website before you leave it, because a website doesn't update until you cause a trigger, which is hitting save. You can send additional notifications to other people from this, and equally you can attach a PDF, what's called a PDF feed. It's a little more complicated. And then there are options for integrations, which we don't have, and customizing the layout with some pretty core code. If you just want to see the entries that a form has, they'll show up under the entry tab once you're into it. There's some great reporting here as well. And this is your export option if you want to export to Excel or a CSV file. So we go back, we've built the form, we've configured where it's going and what email addresses have got it, and now we can see contact form 7 demo. Now I can change any of this information. I want to change the name to it to, whoops, I want to change the name to Brian's test form, rename it, and you'll see that the name has changed up here. Go back to all forms, And now you see Brian's test form here. Now, a form by itself doesn't work unless you add it to a page and then you share the page link to the members, or you add it to a menu somewhere, or we add it to Facebook so that people can actually access it. A form is just a configuration of how we collect a bunch of information. So once we've made the form, we need to put it on a page. So as with all pages, we go back to all pages. I've already set up a test form page here, which is actually just a duplicate of the Masters Coach Manager application for this year. Edit this page. Of course, it says Elementor, so we edit with Elementor. And often when we're putting a form on a page, you want to add information about why you're collecting the information, what it is, and what you're going to do with the information. In all of our form pages, we try and keep a very consistent format so that we have headers, then we have the actual information around what's going to happen or the event or what you're registering for, and then we're actually going to put the form in here. Now, you'll recall that we built the form in Fluent Forms, which is a Fluent form control here. There is another one here, which is the basic version. This one just has more controls, more options on it. Drag it over, drop it. It'll take a few seconds to show up there, and then we simply select Brian's test form. It'll take a second or two to reload. And from here, you've got all of the options that we configured. And do we want to show the title of the form? And we can actually edit the name of the title here. Do we want to show the labels? So labels on, labels off. I prefer labels off because I think it's a bit tidier, but if you haven't put the placeholder text when you made your form, it does look a bit blank there. So sometimes labels are a bit simpler to keep on, and placeholders are the text that sits in the middle, of course. When we're laying a form out, we need to think about how it displays on page, and on page you always want to have a bit of a border between text, otherwise these two would be sitting beside. So like normal, we go to advanced, and remembering margins is space on the outside of the control, padding is space on the inside of the control. That's covered in one of the earlier videos around making pages. What we're looking for here is usually around a 10-point spacing, but now we have this awkward thing where this text is not lined up with this text. So if we unlink these, and we'll actually increase the spacing at the top so that now those two line up nice and tidily. And as always, we're sticking with our rule of no more than 3 colors on a page outside of imagery, and no more than 2 fonts. These fonts are aligned. This is a smaller version of this, and this is the same font as that. One of the problems we have right now, though, is our button is blue, and we don't want a blue button. So, as always, we come to the side control here, and we've got the form container, the labels all the way through, all of the different parts of the form that we can configure in its styling, but the submit button. So as you can see, it's blue, and we know the Harbour color is 810915, so we change it to that. And from there, we simply hit publish. You'll get a little pop-up here which says have a look if you ever want to see what your page looks like. And this is the page now published. There's your form online. All of the information we added, the URL, remember we changed it to a website link, and unless I put my email address in here, which I will use the National Hockey Centre, now the phone number pops out. Again, we've got the country selection turned on. Usually I turn that option off in this row when we're making the form, but this is the conditional formatting that we attach to this. So if I put any other address in here, this number should disappear. It's as simple as that for conditional formatting. And that is all there is to making a form. While it does seem a little complex, forms don't show up on pages until you create them, and you can equally add a form to a page or a post using exactly the same process in Elementor. It is as simple as that for adding forms. Forms only collect information, we don't collect money, and any information submitted into a form does not go into the Sprout database, which is important to remember when you're collecting information, particularly from new members, because it will not grow our database. Other than that, it's a very simple process.